Chief Executive of UBA West Africa, Abiola Bewa, has disclosed that supporting the development of Ghana will still be high on the agenda of the bank despite her elevation as West Africa boss of the bank. According to her, the bank's contribution to the growth of the country's economy will increase from its current state. She spoke with Joy Business in an exclusive interview after her appointment as Regional Chief Executive for West Africa.
Appointment, which takes effect from the 1st of March 2018, will see her overseeing the bank's businesses in Ghana, Benin Republic, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia and Sierra Leone. The bank supported the Volta River Authority with credit facility to purchase crude to power some emergency plans during the power crisis a few years ago. It was also involved in some infrastructure funding for government. Abiola Bewa says the support of the bank for government initiatives will improve going forward.
I mean, as the MD, my office is in Ghana. Ghana is my firstborn. I would say I used to be, or I'm still the MD of UBA Ghana, and the Bank of Ghana approves the new person. All right, great. My love for Ghana won't change. The agenda to support the private sector of Ghana is not going to change. My agenda to support the government of Ghana is not going to change. And of course, the CSR that we currently support in Ghana will rather increase, isn't it? So there shouldn't be any fear about that. All is well. In fact, it's going to be better for Ghana because my office is in Ghana.
She also disclosed plans to bridge the intra-trade gap between Francophone and Anglophone countries in the SAP region as a measure to enhance investment in Africa.
We need to know how we can tie up the relationship between these six countries because, as you rightly know, our president has been talking about Africa without AIDS. So what that really translates to for me is that we have to start looking at trade among ourselves, trade among African countries. The traffic should not be China and Ghana alone. It should be among ourselves. So I'm going to work with a group of teams young ladies and men that can fix out the relationship between these six countries. So I'm going to, yes, I have people, but not too many, just about 6 of them.
Before her appointment as CEO West Africa, Mrs. Bewa managed the affairs of UBA Ghana as MD and Chief Executive Officer since 2013. She had previously worked as the Deputy Managing Director of UBA Ghana, an Executive Director at Zenith Bank, and as well a Business Financial Manager at Standard Chartered Bank.
After about a decade of negotiations among member countries, heads of state of African Union have settled on March 21 this year to sign protocols to make way for the implementation of the Continental Free Trade. These protocols, when signed, will allow all African countries to trade with member nations without any barrier. It is also expected to enhance the participation of Africa in global trade as a respectable partner in reducing the continent's dependence on foreign aid, among others. Fred Alipui is an international trade relations expert and team leader for the AU Committee on the CFT.
The AU, after so many 50 decades, 5 decades, have realized that we need a continental common market. And therefore, the negotiations for the past 3 years have culminated in the finalization of the framework agreement and at least 5 protocols, which will be signed on the 21st of March, to be precise, in Kigali, to establish the Continental Free Trade Area, which will be a prelude to the Continental Customs Union and Common Market. And therefore, the team that is helping the African Union, of which I'm the team leader, we're studying, focusing on the practical payment system that will drive the Continental Free Trade Area. That's what I would say.
Now, government's quest of ensuring that reforms being implemented for an improved business environment to quickly yield the desired results may have suffered another setback. This is because Ghana has gone down 1 place in the latest Rand Merchant Bank Where to Invest in Africa rankings. Georgia Afe has more.
This ranking is coming at a time that previous reports like the World Bank Doing Business and the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Report have all scored Ghana low marks in terms of favorable business environment, especially when this report raises issues about rising corruption. Their argument that it might take a while longer before investors start responding to some of these measures that have been taken by government to improve the situation. A development that could see Ghana loosen out slightly in terms of capital attraction. For government, it doesn't believe the situation is that bad for the country, especially when this was based on an aggregate of previous reports that Ghana didn't perform well already. Government again is optimistic that measures being implemented will get the country the right results very soon.
Now, Consumer Unity and Trust Society CATS International is making a case for government to initiate some innovative strategies to boost revenue generation within the various district assemblies in the country. There is more in the following report.
Consumer Unity and Trust Society CATS International wants government to explore innovative ways of improving revenue generation across all district assemblies in the country. According to them, the overdependence on mineral royalties, especially among areas where extractive activities are underway, is detrimental to government's Ghana Beyond Aid agenda. Speaking to Joy Business, Center Coordinator of CATS International, Apiakusi Adumako, says this move will go a long way to reduce the strain of the District Assembly Common Fund.
We've realized that the MMDAs across the country are not able to raise enough money to fund their development, and largely because of the over-reliance on the District Assembly Common Fund. Per the chart that was announced this morning, some assemblies even raised 0.1% in locally IGF. That means that if Accra shuts down, that's the life of the assembly also shuts down. And having seen that Ghana is looking Ghana Beyond Aid, that requires the need for the assemblies to be able to raise domestic revenue to fund their operations, because very soon the aid money is not going to come. And we think that one key thing that we can do is to be able to enhance the capacities of the MMDAs for them to be able to raise the needed revenue for their development.
On his part, former director of the Institute of Local Government Studies, Dr. Datsin Awunyo Vito, revealed that government's Ghana Beyond Aid agenda risks failing should the low rate of internally generated funds continue. He believes the mapping of property rates using technology would go a long way to deal with the matter.
The IGF that we generate from the various MMDAs are woefully inadequate. There's therefore the need for us to build our capacities, everything that we need to do to make sure that we grow our IGF for local development is very important. That is the reason why we are having this program today. And I indicated that today, cost of collecting our property should be reduced, particularly with the Ghana Post GPS that we have. We should be able to do what I call digital mapping of our properties. And then if the agents that we outsource the property collection to, we're able to come out with a very good agreements and we'll monitor the collection. It will reduce leakages. By that, we should be able to improve upon the revenue that we collect locally.
The workshop was under the theme Maximizing Revenue from Property Rates.
Turning to the insurance sector now, and government's agricultural transformation agenda cannot be realized without agro-insurance. That's according to the General Manager of Ghana Agricultural Insurance Pool, Alhaji Ali Mohammed Ketu. He says the flagship programs such as Planting for Food and Jobs should be backed with interventions to deal with potential risk. Lava FM's Kwesi Deborah reports.
Ghana is signatory to the Malabo Declaration on Accelerated Agricultural Growth and Transformation for Shared Prosperity and Improved Livelihood. Commitment 6 requires enhancing resilience system for vulnerable groups in Africa. The Ghana Agricultural Insurance Program has since inception in 2011 developed the first agricultural insurance for Ghana. It also initiated a key adaptation measure to climate change. 19 Ghanaian insurance companies, which form the Ghana Agricultural Insurance Pool, ensure a solid financial foundation. Haji Katubi moves the level of patronage, but says the program has trained agricultural extension officers to sensitize farmers on insurance.
If they have insurance, he has done everything right, and there's no rain. And Ghana, we depend mainly on rain-fed agriculture. In this case, whatever he has done comes to zero, and that's where the insurance comes in. So he gets compensation for the losses he has incurred. So one, his income has been regularized, and two, he can go back to his business come the next season. So it fits into even the government's agenda for agricultural transformation. So we've been talking to Plan for Food and Jobs, 1D, 1F projects, so that all those agri-related issues could be supported. Because we provide protection for both farmers and even stakeholders.
The group presented 2 checks to Premium Foods at Jache Pramso in the Ashanti region.
Okay. The total amount is 1,480,716 Ghana cedis. So here we present the 2 checks.
It covers benefits for losses the company suffered in 2017 major season on its farms at Afram Plains and Agogo. Procurement Manager Prince Ando is happy Ghana's rain-fed agriculture finally has relief for excessive floods and for armyworm.
In Ghana, agric is mostly relied on rain-fed, and most of these things we don't have control over. So if you have a company that is going to take care of that risk, it's a big relief for us.
Reporting for JoyNews,
did over 1,000.
Now, the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors Ghana is advocating the provision of opportunities that will enable private sector players to establish new oil refineries in the downstream petroleum sector. Government has consistently declared its intention to make the country a hub for the oil and gas sector. In an interview with Joy Business, Chief Executive of the Chamber, Senor Hosi, noted that West African governments have not demonstrated enough commitment to managing such facilities.
That publicly creates rather a healthier sourcing point for BDCs. Because if refineries are producing here, then we as well buy from them bulk and get it done. But the refinery economics has to be sound. And I don't think that there's enough prudence in government putting a lot of money in there, looking at the sector, but it should rather create a structure, an environment that will rather drive private capital into the refinery space. All right, we see government history with refinery. There's nothing worth being proud of.
Ghanaian local BDCs to get into such ventures to help.
As a refinery, we are traders. We'll buy and trade anywhere in the world, so we don't mind. It's good. When you have local refineries, the risk you face is much less.
We are turning to aviation now, and African countries are being advised to embrace the free air market transport system to boost their economies. This comes as 23 African countries recently launched a single African air transport market initiative aimed at opening the continent's skies. Now, speaking to Joy Business recently, the Vice President of IATA, Rafael Kuchi, said protectionism is rather a hindrance to the growth of the air transport market.
Currently, about 23 countries have signed on to the single African air transport market, with 32 countries yet to join. According to the Vice President of IATA, Rafael Kuchi, an immediate benefit of the single air market will be enhanced connectivity among African nations and economic growth.
Which today with intra-Africa trade is only at between 12 to 15%. Now, we want to see this to be 30, 50% at least for the continent. How can we do that if we don't even have connectivity amongst us? And we did a study in 2014, actually, which led to this single African air transport market, which says that if 12 African countries were actually to open up their markets to each other, what would be the impact on those 12 countries? And it emerged that we would see a GDP growth in the 12 countries of $1.3 billion. We're going to see 155,000 new jobs in the air transport sector alone. And we were going to see 5 million more passengers who today are not flying begin to fly, because with the opening of the market, there will be increased competition, and with increased competition, you're going to have many more, you have fares coming down and many more people able to travel.
But while launching the single air market with 23 countries is an important step forward, Rafael Kuchi says its benefits will not be fully realized until there is an effective implementation by member countries.
This is something that is a follow-up to the Yamoussoukro decision of 1999. And as you know, Yamoussoukro decision, which is almost 20 years old, was not truly effectively implemented. But there were a number of reasons why it was not effectively implemented, chief among which was the fact that many states feared at the time that their national carriers will be competed out of business if they were to open up their markets to other African operators. But today we are seeing that even though they never open up their markets, where are most of the national carriers? Where is Ghana Airways? Where is Nigeria Airways? Okay, where is what do you call it? Zambia Airways. You know, many of the national carriers, which were big, Air Afrique, which was a giant in this region, they all disappeared, even though the market was never opened up. The undoing of Africa is actually closing up the market.
The launch of the single air market follows closely on moves by several African countries to relax visa rules for African nations. Sheila Tamaklu for Joy Business.
Still with the aviation sector, and country manager for Brussels Air, Rita Machedo, is calling for more female mentors to create a pool of many more women in the aviation industry. The country manager made the call as the airline welcomed an all-female crew at the Kotoka International Airport to commemorate the celebration of International Women's Day.
Women and men have the same rights, should be paid the same, should have the same opportunities, and which happens in Brussels Airlines since the beginning. But I think that we know that the world is still a very man world, and we are getting there to be equal. That's the only thing we want.
And what do you think we can do to, encourage more women into the sector?
Well, actually, 10% of our cockpit staff are women, which is very small, but it's the highest in the aviation industry. I think, especially cockpit staff, it's really a man's world. But things are changing, and you just need role models and people doing it, so the others know that they can also do. So it's a cultural thing that is disappearing.
Now, on a lighter note, practicing healthy eating lifestyles is fast becoming a norm as many individuals and organizations are placing emphasis on the link between good health and productivity. Now, with the upsurge of vegetarian restaurants in the bigger cities, fresh fruits and vegetable vendors are cashing in on the situation as a lot more people are trying to stay off meat and adopt the vegetarian life. But healthy lifestyles are expensive to maintain. Pearl Dome explains how costly it can be to stay a vegetarian.
Organic food businesses are seeing significant boost as many people continue to patronize their services. This is because healthy eating habits are gaining ground with many deaths associated with poor dietary conditions these days. Both the health conscious and others who aspire to make healthy choices when it comes to dieting rely mostly on fresh natural foods to achieve their aim. These will, however, require reaching deep into one's resources, as maintaining such healthy lifestyles is quite heavy on the pocket. Anita Punjabi is the owner of Sunshine Salad Bar and has been managing the business for 15 years now. She shares the evolving trends over the years.
Well, I think when we started, it was still something exclusive. And now a lot of people are catching on. We are so much more aware. We have access to social media, the internet, information. So I think everyone's become more aware of the way they're supposed to eat. And more we seem to have a following, and it's a very diverse following, I'm proud to say. At the takeaway, you can go from spending 15 cedis on a meal Which is quite affordable.
Which is affordable, yes.
Yes, and you'd be full.
Yes.
And it goes all the way up, of course, to about 60 or 70, depending on what you choose. And then at the restaurant here, I think on average, if you had a salad and a drink, or a burger and a drink, you'd end up spending between 60 and 70 cedis as well.
Okay. Dr. Segbefia has been a vegetarian for well over 4 decades now, and he tells us about how much he spends as well as what goes into maintaining his vegan lifestyle.
In March, when the rains set in, then you have these natural mushrooms. You understand that? What I do is I buy about 2,400 cedis worth, okay? Parboil them and stock them in my freezer. I take about 10 cedis worth of carrots every month. At times, every 2 weeks. At times, depending on the season, at times it costs me as much as 40 cedis. The same goes for green pepper, green beans, the French, we call it French beans, and the lettuce. I buy almost 20 cedis worth of lettuce every 2 weeks. So if I want to add up, I take a lot of onions, so whether they are in season or not in season, I buy all my things in bulk. And fresh tomatoes, I spend about 10 cedis every week. And then the other, I have canned mushrooms that I use, and the how do you call it? I have olives. Normally, I have olives and all those things that some I order from outside. And then we have this black fungus that is imported from China, which is also good, so it's a mishmash of expenditures,
So how does one maintain a vegetarian lifestyle on a low budget?
What one has to do is to first know the budget, and then to have some priorities. I mean, eating healthy is definitely got to be on your priority list. And then you'll be able to find a way to make that happen.
Right.
But I think we don't think twice when we have to go to the salon and do our hair. But we think twice about how much we're spending on the food that's actually going in. So I think if you think about nutritional value, and you think about, produce that you're using, if you want to use local produce, and there is a lot of variety available locally, it doesn't have to be expensive.
Okay. There's no gainsaying that people may have to brace themselves for more expenditure as eating habits tilt towards vegetarianism. Whether for a lifestyle change or for health reasons, being a vegetarian doesn't have to be so limiting when you have variety of meals to choose from. Reporting for Joy Business at the Sunshine Salad Bar, Pelsefa Kodomi.
Well, I don't know if I can stay off meat, so all the best vegetarians. Now we move on to our interview of the day. Some commercial banks in the country say they have been responding to developments in the economy by reducing their lending rates. Banks have come under serious criticism over high lending rates despite significant reduction in all the variables that influence cost of credit. Managing Director of Barclays Bank, Patience Achanu, says her bank, for instance, has dropped its interest rates by 6% from last year. That's our interview of the day.
I think we've already responded to the call because there's a lot of progress in the lending rate space, and a lot of us, in line with the decline in policy rates, have dropped our lending rates by more than 6% since the beginning of last year. So we've already started responding favorably to the improving macroeconomic fundamentals.
So in the case of Barclays, what's the situation right now that if I should work to engage your credit officers and I'm not a prime or maybe a very credit-worthy person, what am I likely to get from your end?
So from 34%, which we started last year with, you can actually borrow from us at around 26 to 27%.
And so one would ask that, how do you expect this development also to impact on the bottom line? Because there are some who have said that low interest rates sometimes translate into more credit extension and then significant growth in your loan book.
Definitely, if we don't ensure that this opportunity translates into higher volumes will affect adversely our profit, because of course, if rates are higher and you drop it without compensating with enhanced growth in volumes, you will feel the pinch. But I see this as a huge opportunity to enable the private sector grow by giving out more loans.
And therefore, you believe that it would help the growth of the private sector as well?
Indeed, I definitely think so. I think as a Ghanaian, whilst I'm a bank MD, I'm not proud of our high interest rate regime. Sometimes when I meet my other African colleagues, I'm embarrassed to say we lend at 30%. So this development is good for all of us, and ultimately to translate into a stronger economy.
Talking about interest rate, there's this talk about the Ghana reference rate taking off from next month. Some are saying that always the big banks should take the lead for others to follow. I mean, what do we make of this Ghana reference rate that is going to take off from next month?
I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, because there was just too much divergence in base rates across banks. I mean, one base rate is 17%, another is 25%. I mean, what can possibly account for that, except that we're allowed to use our own parameters and variables like return on equity and stuff like that. So I think getting one consistent rate, which factors in the development in T-bill rates and the policy rate, is the right way to proceed.
And that interview ends Business Live tonight. My name is Darryl Kwao. Enjoy the weekend. Business Live is back next week. Do stay with us.